For our beef stew, we're going to take some stewing steak, or casserole steak, whatever you want to call it. I'm not measuring things out, you just judge the quantities, whatever you think will do for what you need. Here we've got about 800 grams, roughly, is it 2 pounds of meat, and that I've got on some seasoned flour here, which I'm going to coat the beef with before I fry it. Also, we have got some vegetables to go into the stew. You could call the holy trinity of vegetables for stew. You've got onions, we have celery and carrot. Also, I am going to use some smoked garlic. When I'm using garlic, to take the harshness away, I remove the inner green bit of the garlic, which I'll just show you here. And the next thing we're going to need for our stew is some beer. This is a beer I brewed myself. Obviously you can use any old beer, but why not use the good stuff? This is quite a rich, dark, strong beer. So as well as the beer for the liquid to do the stewing, I'm going to use half volume of water as well. So with our pan on the heat, a bit of oil into the pan. The first thing I'm going to do is fry the onions. Now the onions have browned off nicely, I'm going to remove them with a slotted spoon and keep them to one side in a bowl so I can add those later. I've now coated the beef with the flour, which was seasoned with salt and pepper, and I'm now going to brown it in this pan. Because there's quite a lot of beef for such a small pan, I'm going to brown it off in small batches. If you overcrowd the pan, it's not going to brown off, and we're browning the meat for extra flavour. If you crowd the pan, the meat's just going to sweat a bit and basically boil, and you're not going to get nice brown bits, and you're not going to get the flavour you want. You want the nice caramelised bits to add flavour, nothing to do with sealing the meat, all about flavour. So once the meat is nicely browned, again, we can take that over to the bowl with the onions in and reserve that for later, whilst we brown the next batch of beef. And you just keep repeating that, adding more beef, browning it off, reserving it until it's all browned off. One thing I didn't mention here is the reason for adding the flour dusted on the piece of meat. Not only does it brown slightly around the meat, but it adds the flour to the stew, and that will actually help thicken the sauce when it's all cooked. Now the last portion of the meat is finished browning off, we can add all the ingredients back into the pot. So we've got our carrots, our celery. I would often add some herbs here, maybe a bouquet garni. I've just looked in the garden, and after the hard frost, nothing has survived. So this is why I'm putting the smoked garlic in, just to add a bit more flavour. The seasoning on the flour and the meat should hopefully be enough to season this dish. I won't add any more. And then in goes the reserved meat and onions from earlier, along with their juices. And now the liquid. So we've got our beer there. There we go. I'm not going to put all of that in. I've obviously poured up a bit too much for my needs, so I'll have to get a shot of the rest of the beer somehow. I'm sure I'll find a way. And then I'll top up the rest with some water. And there we go. And that's cold water I'm adding there. So I'm going to turn up the heat underneath that. And I want this to come to a very gentle simmer. And then I'm going to leave that cooking for about 2 or 3 hours so the meat really tenderises. But I don't want a rolling boil, or even a simmer for the most of the cook. Just want a very, very gentle breaking of bubbles on the surface of the water. So what I'm going to do, as soon as that starts coming to the simmer, I'm going to put the lid on it, and then I'm going to transfer it into an oven about 150 degrees C and leave it there, so I don't need to think about it, for 2 or 3 hours. Right, just as this is heating up, some scum is coming to the surface as the beer is frothing up. I don't think there's any real reason to skim it like I'm doing here, apart from to try and keep the sauce nice and clear. Purely for aesthetic purposes, I don't really think it'll affect the flavour. I'll just skim this off as we go. I'm not going to be too thorough, I'm just going to get the most of it off and then back on with the lid. Right, so that's come up to a simmer, so lid on and into the oven.